Okay, today's video we're going to talk about doing Google advertising, Google Ads advertising in a down market. And why that's actually a better time to run your Google ads. And I'm not just saying that because I do a lot of advertising for clients, so general disclaimer up front. I'm saying that because we literally get better results in the recession times than we're getting in the so-called competitive or good times, because things are more competitive when things are better and your competitors are flush with cash. They're driving up the cost of doing business. There's more options to pick from. So with that, I'll explain why you want to be going strong and have dry powder when everybody else is cowering away and not doing as much Google ads. And the same thing actually applies to Facebook and other online advertising, which I'll touch upon here. So you could take advantage of those opportunities and not to, act off of emotion, saying, we really got to cut costs, and just instead of immediately acting on that, consider what I'm giving you here, as it can be a really, really good opportunity for you to really cash out, as it would be buying houses after 2008 and the market crashed. When the market's low, that's when you buy. Okay? So anyway, I'll cover all that in today's video. Lots of people, when sales slow from current or repeat customers, they cut their advertising budgets thinking people aren't buying, which is only half true. The thing about search ads specifically, you could add Bing ads and to Google ads, search engine advertising, is obviously if people are searching, they have a need. They're not going to search for a roof or basically search for a insurance policy for fun, right? They're there for a reason, and it's not like a billboard, where I agree with that, right? For a billboard, they aren't changing the prices because there's a recession. They may, I don't want to say never, but respectively they don't, right? So you're basically effectively getting half the value for what you're paying for once the recession hits, or a recession's soon to be made official, like it is now in summer 2020. So, but with Google, there's less people searching. Absolutely, there's less people searching for what you sell in your market. And if you don't do anything yet, this is an even better time for you to get your feet wet when everybody else, there's less competition as a whole, but there's less people searching. But what's left is more profitable, specifically, and for several reasons. In a recession, less people are buying, but maybe half of what it was, but the search ads still work, okay? If you still got a good funnel that'll work, it'll work even during a recession because people aren't searching until, obviously I'll make the disclaimer that if they're looking to buy, if you have advertisements that are like, are you considering a slate roof? When they're searching for, should I buy a slate roof? That's a little different, but what I'm talking about, when a user's searching for slate roofing company, that's what you're advertising on, obviously that person's still in market if they're searching for that. Therefore, Google ads, you can count on, should still work. If you don't want to go after the people that are looking, just doing information seeking, that's a whole nother thing. And for mostly even with that stuff still works, because if they're looking to potentially buy in the near future, a good chunk of those will, and the ones that don't is offset by the reduction in cost for those clicks. So anyway, that's the basics behind all of this. And frankly, the same thing applies to Facebook and Twitter ads and TikTok ads and everything else, because as soon as the recession even begins to show at all, before they make the official declaration that there's a recession going on, people start cutting their advertising budgets because it's the easiest thing to cut. Oh shit, we got to cut our expenses. What do we cut? The advertising is literally the easiest thing to cut. And I understand that, because you don't want to cut an employee that you've spent several years training and building up their knowledge base And when sales come back, it's a hell of a lot harder to bring them back than to just call your advertising man, tell them to raise your advertising budget. But that said, if you are in position where you can keep advertising and you don't have to instantly cut, there's a huge opportunity for you, which I'm telling you here and sharing with you here, and a couple examples of which on this particular video. Respectively, what generally happens is if people are counting on repeat business of any type, if the recession hits and you're not in a business where people have to buy it what you have no matter what, we'll give you an example. We had a chimney cleaning company that we worked with, and as soon as the recession hit, this in 2022 where things were starting to clearly slow down, people, and it was spring, and this is when their slower time is anyway, because when you get a chimney cleaned out, it's usually more so when the winter hits, when you're going to actually need it, but some people do in the spring as well. And if people are fearful, which the inflation's going on right now in 2022, they're fearful about the inflation and the interest rates going up and all this other jazz, they too also think about what to cut. And so with that said, even though if they have money, they're just scared. And the human psychology is if there's a threat, you either fight or you flight. And there's nothing to fight, so people just freeze and they do nothing. And all their decisions go on hold. So respectively, all the repeat business that would have just normally flowed in, they're using Google ads for, to get new customers in, but 90% or 80% of the revenue is the repeat business. All the repeat business freezes up for the reasons I said. And then they don't have so-called money, they think anyway, to go after the Google ads and then shut that off or turn it drastically down. Which is, again, a dumb idea because the getting is good when everybody else is going through the same thing. The time to buy a house is when everybody else is needing to sell. The best time to buy a used supercar, if you're going to buy a Ferrari, is as soon as the recession hits, because everybody's they need cash or whatever. So anyway, with that, even if the ads work, if you're wondering why there's less competition on Google ads, the reason is because other parts of the business slows down for people and your competitors. Therefore, they cut the ads because the other parts of the business slows down, and they have overhead / employees and all this other crap to pay for. So they think they're going to pay for it out of their ad money, which is really dumb in that case because the ad money is bringing in a revenue for them, but they act out of emotion. I see all the time people mainly make decisions as it comes to advertising with their emotion. Even if the numbers are on point, people still just, if they're scared, this is just how human psychology works. So you're going to get a lot of people when a recession hits in your market dipping out, and you might have 60% of the people that you are advertising against on Google, which there's 4 ads at the top of Google, generally speaking, sometimes more, sometimes less. But generally speaking, 4. If you're in a competitive market, Google will squeeze 4 in there unless they're going to have shopping in there up top, and maybe they'll only have 2 ad spots. But there's 10 people cycling in and out of those 4 ad spots. Google's constantly trying to figure out who should be at what slot and for what type of person who searches for your keywords. Given a male that searches for your keywords, they'll find that it's better to show your competitors' ads versus a female. It's they find it that person that gender converts better when they show your ad because they're constantly trying to figure out how to make a better user experience for their users, so they want to click on ads in the future. But instead of 10 cycling in and out, right, you may only have all those competition is gone, and there's suddenly there's just more meat to grab, respectively. And then with that, certain things happen. Google only charges what the market can bear. When a recession hits, Google has to adapt with the times, at least to competitive markets. If you're advertising in places where there's only like 1 or 2 ads, generally the price per click won't change that much. But if you're in a super competitive market like, a plumber, where there's plenty of competition in your local market or whatever, or you're selling sales training, lots of competition there, whatever. Could be, and same thing for e-commerce, by the way, just anything with a lot of competition with it. Google generally has no problem, getting that ad space to sell, so to say, on top of Google. They suddenly, when 60% of the people are gone, and they're worried about more people dropping, they'll actually lower the cost per click. And at heart, it's still a bidding system. So if there's not as much demand for the clicks, the cost per goes down. If there's more demand, the cost goes up. So naturally, as people drop out, even though there's actually more people than ad slots, as I talked about, the cost per click generally just goes down as, on average, between, as a whole from all markets. So you can kind of expect that. And it will go down more if you're in a competitive market, but isn't quite super competitive. If it's kind of where there's 4 or 5 companies that are, advertising, and then the recession hits, the cost per click can come down a ton, because now they don't even have 4 ads to put in the ad spots. But even if there's more than 4 and there's people cycling in and out, the cost, as I've seen, will still come down by the examples I'm going to share here. So with less options, the click-through rate on your ads goes up, and the front-end conversion rates typically goes up along with it. When I say front-end conversion rates, I mean, if you're doing e-commerce, that just means conversion rates. But if you're doing lead generation and you got a 2-step sale, well, you got to generate a lead and then you got to work the lead to a sale. The click-to-lead conversion rate, that actually generally goes up because now there's less options. The main viable competitors that you were up head-to-head against on the top of Google are no longer there. The person, and they can't usually find them, and the people don't usually scroll past only so far on Google anyway. And it's just, there's less competition in that regard there. Respectively, the conversion rate typically will go up as well, along with the click-through rate that you get. So, which is why you want to go after it. That said, there is drawbacks definitely to advertising in a recession. If you sell something people have to buy either way, you will actually crush it in a down market. So, if you're selling that, broken toilet repair, going back to the plumbing example, you have a broken toilet. It doesn't matter if it's a recession or not. Doesn't matter if you have $100 left. You're spending that last $100 to get your toilet fixed. If you've went to the point where you've searched for it, at least, we'll say, right? In that case, all the other people are trying to save money because they don't have the repeat business coming in, like I said, and then they cut their ad budget to because they're making they're looking at things stupidly, we'll just say, and now the opportunity is there for you to get the customers at a cheaper rate, and there's also an opportunity to get more customers out of a given pool of people searching. Of course, there's less people searching, but of the people that are left, there's less competition. You'll just get more of them. And so you could do well if they have to buy what you have no matter what. Even if they, though, don't have to buy right away, and they're buying something like a roof, where, it's kind of like, oh, I need the roof, but, I can, let's put it off 3 months. Unless, it's very rare that somebody calls for a new roof after, there's buckets on the floor and the water's dripping through the roof. People generally, more than half will just say, or a majority, are going to know they need a new roof, and they're going to think about it and shop it around and sit on it and debate on it and figure out what they're going to do over several months, like 3 to 6 months of research. And even then, they can delay it a little bit longer because they say, I need to do a roof this year. And technically, they could wait till next year, and it probably won't be an issue. Probably that roof ain't so bad that it'll ruin the subdecking and everything else within that, if they do wait a year. So, if you sell something that people can delay purchasing, the leads will still be cheaper, absolutely still, as is, I told you. But the closing rate on those leads can certainly be significantly less. Okay, you might have a closing rate of 30% of the same leads that you got in from Google search when times were good and there was no recession. Because, so literally speaking, people will search, your ad and your landing page will get the same rate of people It's still attractive to the person searching, but what happens a lot of time, like in the roofing example, is you'll talk them through the whole process, and then they'll freeze at the last second, and they'll delay, and they'll delay, and they'll delay, which screws with your closing rates. So you should also, of course, know that that's natural. However, you'll get so many more leads for the same price than you had before when times were good and everybody else is advertising and trying to get the same customers at the same time, that the fact that you have a crappier close rate still won't be enough to make it not worth your time to go after this opportunity to get customers on Google search where more than half of your competition is likely gone. And with that, and the other thing is with that, I should say, you get those leads. These are good quality leads. They have money. Most of the time when people don't buy in a recession, it's based upon fear, like I was trying to say, which is why I kind of displayed things like I did. The person has the money. They're just scared. So biologically, they're just, they're trained not to move, because if, you got an enemy in the wild, historically, if you either fight that animal or you freeze like you're dead. And so this is how things have translated to a financial world here. So respectively, you have those leads. If you just keep following them up, eventually that person's going to realize, I still need the roof. I didn't call because I didn't need the roof. And you'll get them, anyway, or a large chunk of the time. Not the same rate in which, they were during good times, but still at a decent rate. If you factor out over the next year, if you follow up those leads, how that affects your your closing rate really, or what, and then you factor your true closing rate is, it works out to where you can make a lot of money because you get most of that back. So leads are super, super cheap. You might get a lead for half the price, and even though the closing rate is a third of what it normally was right away, you get most of those people back over the next year when they finally make their decision, is my point. So that you should look at things that way if you are in a market where people can delay and don't have to act right away. Okay? Still becomes worth it for you to do it. Anyway, that's the main nuts and bolts of advertising in a down market / economy / recession, whatever you want to call it. I gave you a couple different examples here of different markets and in different actual recessions. I'm classifying what we are going through right now as a recession just from the standpoint that the interest rates are raising. And I know I get feedback from our clients, a few dozen clients that we have, about who's buying, are people delaying their purchases, all that good jazz, what people are making on their back ends from the leads we provide. And then of course I can see sales for the e-commerce companies we have and all that. And so I'm going to go through a scenario of back in April 2020 of what happened there compared to the same time the previous year, which you should always compare your results on your ads to know if you're doing better or worse on a year-over-year basis, because PPC results vary depending on the time of the year or season you're in, basically in every market to some degree. And then I'm going to go into what happened recently, and we're talking about June of 2022 with all this interest rate bullshit going on and everybody thinking that the world's ending and they're putting off their purchases, and a lot of people cutting their ad budgets like it is an actual recession, and probably most people thinking that they're going to declare a recession soon enough here. There's one more quarter of negative GDP growth being reported. Anyway, with that said, this was a paint brand that we had, and so I told this client, I said, similar to like what I'm trying to tell you here, this is the time to not cower. Yes, the economy sucks right now. We're in a recession because of COVID, and your competition's gonna be, cowering away because they're scared about what's going on and all that. This is the time to just pound it. People are gonna buy this paint if they're searching for it. The people who have money to paint, they're going to have money to still buy the paint. So don't worry about what's going on. And trust me, from my experience, this is the time to go stronger, the strongest. So we agreed with me, and we really went, balls to the wall with this thing. In this market, we were we could basically spend as much as we want as long as we could get an ROI that was similar as to before, which that's generally what you should be doing for your business with your ads and all that, of course, if you can handle the growth. We spent about twice as much during April than we did the previous April because we were going to go balls to the wall with this thing, knowing that this is an opportunity to jump on right away while everybody else is kind of, messing around and, cutting their budgets and just, thinking the world's going to end, basically. On the additional budget and all that, our cost per click went down 52% right away. So that right there, if I said nothing else, should be enough indication that if a recession hits, you want to keep going as long as you have dry powder, i.e. reserve money to keep going with what you're doing on Google Ads and presumably on Facebook and all these other places, because when people drop off on Facebook, the ad space goes down, the rates go down per click as it does on TikTok or any other online pay-per-click advertising, because it's all still fundamentally a bidding system. And to sell all the inventory, they simply lower the prices so that basically they don't have to change how their system works. The system's meant to have so many ads showing it, and all that. It doesn't have less ads just because they can't sell less. That's just how it works. So for other platforms, But anyway, cost per click was way, way, way less. Click-through rate went up 15%, which you would think that the click-through rate would come up if there's less competition, but fundamentally still, the ad's not magically changing and getting better, so kind of understand that. The conversion rate, the conversions that we got though, i.e. sales, went up 194%. So we spent twice as much, but we almost got 3 times as much sales. Okay, and the profit we got, we have an additional 155% profit that April compared to the previous April, going balls to the wall when everybody else is doing less, or a lot of people are doing less. We went more and just really crushed it. And that went into May and then June, and then it started to come back after that with the competition. People that were cowering away at first started to come back, and it wasn't so juicy anymore for us to go after what we were doing and how to pull back ourselves once the competition came back. But if you know this ahead of time, as soon as the recession hits, you bang, hit it right away, you can have several months where you just absolutely crush it while people are figuring out, because emotionally, people, when something happens, they don't act on logic. They just say, go, just cut it. And then they later on come to their senses because they're like, well, we need sales. But before they do that, if you can hit it strong with your ads right away, you can really, really have 2, 3, 4 good months while they're messing around, effing around, trying to figure out what they're going to do and to recollect their thoughts or whatever. And respectively, in this market, there's a lot of competition. You got Amazon and there's other places that sell these paints, so there's more competition. Therefore, the click-through rate wasn't going to go up as much because of that, I think. The impression share that we got went up, shown more often because specifically we were able to spend more money on the ads. We were able to set the targets of the bidding targets up a little higher, so we would get a little bit more action. But anyway, that's the general reason why you want to do this, and it shows you what can happen in a competitive e-commerce market, which this was a very competitive market, what we could do. And so now, in a kind of opposite field in the roofing space, which I talked about earlier, so in a roofing, you're a local roofer, you're in a local market, there's less competition. So now when you have competition, there's only so many guys willing to, or gals of course, willing to advertise in your market for your local service or whatever you're doing. And so when you start having people fall out, then you're in a lot of situations, a lot of times you're going to have really, really good opportunities. Google's really just not going to have shit to advertise or show to people. And then now they really can clean up then. So anyway, this situation, specialty roofer, or in this case, we couldn't just spend more and just maintain ROI because the client, every client, is different. They react differently. They wanted us to spend the same amount we were spending as before, even before this recession hit. And again, this was just 2022, June, and the recession starting to come in, starting in, April and all that. Whereas the spend was up 26%, if we compared this June, we didn't have to fundamentally do much of anything with our advertising to be able to get these numbers. The same thing with the paint brand. Other than to try to spend more, we didn't change the ads or the landing pages or anything else. This roofing company, we spent 26% more money just out of chance. It wasn't a deliberate increase in ad budget. But if we compared it to the previous June, our cost per click was 42% less, which is a big, big difference in how much ROI you can net from set spend or how much more you can spend and still maintain a set amount of ROI if that's what you're going for. So, again, shows you what the difference can be. And realistically, in a lot of you guys' local markets, I guarantee you that a lot of you guys, instead of paying 42% less per click, you can pay 60, 70% less because Google just simply won't have enough players in it. Particularly, like I said, right away after the recession starts to hit, because people, they cut right away and then they slowly come back. So if you're at, right when you got the peak amount of people getting out of Google Ads, that's when the getting is going to be going. The getting is going to be best. Going back to this, the click-through rate up, though, in this local market and from this roofing ad that we had went up 51% overall. So in this case, though, there was less competition. There wasn't the Amazons that are going to be there, whether there's recession or not, and these other bigger companies that sell paint products. Roofing companies were out, and then therefore our click-through rate on our ad, the main people that were there that had the good ads dropped out. Therefore our ad got clicked at a much higher rate in this particular scenario. Conversion rate, I keep saying conversion rate. Conversions went up 285% this April versus the previous April. And so part of that was from the increase in spend, part of that was from the increase in click-through rate, part of that was from the increase in conversion rate because there's less perceived options that are of quality, because ultimately people don't recognize this, but they, if you got a local service, just so you know, they click on your ad, they go to your site, then they go ahead and they go to another site from another ad, and then they kind of compare, oh, this website looks like shit. Okay, this website looks okay, I'll contact them. So they're comparing you to the other people advertising. And that's why I always say on these videos and to our clients, you are not just, this isn't a yellow page listing. You are in direct competition with your other competitors who are advertising on Google search if you're running Google search ads, to where your ad has to have more appeal to the user to get clicked on, at least more than 80% of the people you're competing with there on the ad space, and including the ones that are there, not, that are rotated out, like I was talking about before. And the landing page needs to have a conversion rate higher than the other 80% of your competition, at least, if you're going to make good money with it, because people are just not going to contact you if your stuff doesn't look as good as other options. You'll end up by the default the one they contact more often. Google, on the other, in addition to that, also wants to promote the person in which people select at a higher rate because it gets people to want to click on ads in the future more, which makes Google more money and gets people just addicted to wanting to click on ads in the future and not click on organic listings. It builds in loyalty to the ad program, so people want to click on ads. It's not just the person who bids the most, it's also the person who can serve the user the best. They don't just think short term like people think they do. So, and if you're better than 80% plus of the people in your market in terms of the ad click-through rate and the landing page click-through rate, you'll basically be guaranteed to make money because Google it can only charge so much for the clicks before nobody's willing to advertise anymore. So if you can basically get more out of it than 80% of the people plus, you're going to make money. It's as simple as that. If you can just do those two things, you'll make money. So higher conversion rates, much higher conversion rates. The main people that were there that had the good landing page were gone. people that had the good ads were gone. So we're able to get a much higher click-through rate, much higher conversion rates, paying less per click. See, all this stuff adds up to a 285% increase in leads from only spending 26% more ad budget. Massive. So you guys in a local context can make a shitload of money if you were to stick with it, particularly early on when the recession first hits and people are just kind of, reeling, trying to figure out what to do with their businesses. With, like I said, repeat business, it's gone. They got to figure out how to, come up with some quick cash to keep their staff, payroll paid and all that. So anyway, going further here, cost per conversion went down 67% to go along with everything that I just said there. Now, here's the stickler part. I told you there's a downside, of course, advertising in a down market, which is if a person can delay, they will delay. In a roofing context, they will delay. The profit on the campaign, even though we had 285% more conversions, only went up by 74%. So for the reasons that people are basically delaying they get all the way through the end of the sales process and at the last minute they're delaying. They're saying, they even literally will tell you, if you're, maybe you've heard this already, if you're in a business like this, oh, inflation just went up, we're going to think about this purchase before we decide. So they'll waste all your time gladly and to get all the information that they need so that when they decide they'll be ready, knowing when they get to the end of the process, they aren't going to buy. Maybe they don't admit it to themselves outright during it, but deep down in their, in their mind, they know that they probably don't want to buy today, but because they started the sales process, they'll just continue to go through it and know they needed the roof, and they know they can dick the person around afterwards. They can just say, hey, I'm not ready to buy now, to get the quote, and then when they are ready to buy, they can come back, which is basically fine. I mean, there's no blame to a customer doing that, but just know, of course, as we're talking about here, in a recession, they're going to wait if they can wait. And so the profit from the increase in profit from that particular June, this June versus the previous June, was plus 74%, even though the increase in conversions was 285% on just 26% more ad budget, okay? But me and the business owner that, this roofing company, the owner of the roofing company, my client, we both agree that these people are going to come back. And so if you want to be extra diligent about it, you get a CRM and you get a plan together, and every single lead has a definitive follow-up process. You don't just wing it. Most companies don't follow up leads, particularly inbound leads where the person comes in and is supposed to either buy or not buy at the end of the sales process. That's really, really stupid. Recession or no recession, you need to have a follow-up process, and you keep following them up every month or 2 months or 3 months, whatever you come up with, until that person says yes or no. You ask them, did you buy a roof yet? No. Are you ready to? No. Okay, well, I'll follow up with you later. And you just keep doing that until they say they've already got the roof or they're not interested in a roof anymore, which obviously in that case, they're going to buy a roof. If they knew that they were going to come and get a roof, this wasn't something like this. Eventually, they can't delay it anymore. And so, given enough time, instead of a 74% increase in profit, this is going to be a 3-digit increase in profit from the months that we're going through now because we're going strong. Realistically, the other side, this is this extra piece of information here, there's actually getting to be enough business coming in that, of course, the other thing that's going on is supply issues, and it's almost like overwhelming us. So, respectively, we're running into that issue as well. So, but good problems to have. That said, that's pretty much the deal with recession marketing using Google Ads. And like I said, if you're doing social, try to look at it in another light and potentially give it another shot instead of waiting for all the, if you wait for the recession to improve and wait to recollect your thoughts, there is no opportunity anymore. And so, and this will apply to every recession / slowdown in the economy for, forever. And obviously the effects are different market to market. So as it pertains at least to Google search and Bing search ads, they're still looking to buy. Take advantage of those clicks. They're on a discount. For people that are doing display advertising, social media advertising like Google Display Network, all the rest of the stuff, all the ad space and the clicks you're going to get are also on a discount. You will often get half price for the same ad clicks. If you're selling something that the person ultimately you know is going to buy anyway or need to buy at some point, consider giving it another shot. With all that said, I'll wrap it up with that. If you like this video, I would appreciate it if you would give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I have a ton of strategies and other information that I share about what we're doing here at Guaranteed PPC, PPC Management Company, working strategies, stuff like that we go through and use and give it to you guys on this channel. I also have a blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build PPC campaigns the way that I build them that are essentially set up to be guaranteed to work and guaranteed to work because they go beyond what our competition's willing to set their stuff up like and at, and therefore can work once they're applied. We give you great information there. I personally write that blog myself. If you have any questions about recession marketing as it comes to PPC, anything I covered and you think that I should cover it and didn't, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel, usually within a day or two time. So with that, hope you enjoyed it. See you on the next one.